Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sarah F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 319, season 10, episode 10. Hey guys, great to be back this week. I don't have Chin with me because I have a special treat for you direct from Prepper Camp itself. We had a ball out there at Prepper Camp in North Carolina, and if you can make it out next year, I highly recommend you take the time and come on out. Not only do you get to meet some great people, but you get to just get your head filled up with so much education and great stuff. The material is just spectacular as far as the learning goes. And then the people just make it, an experience to remember. We had a fantastic time. All the classes went well. And if you're just joining me for the first time, I want to welcome you here. There is some exciting things going on at the Changing Earth podcast. We are joining up with the Prepper Broadcasting Network. You can find the Prepper Broadcasting Network at prepperbroadcasting.com. That's prepperbroadcasting.com. When we go live in the future, we will be doing it via the Prepper Broadcasting Network. So you're going to have to go over to prepperbroadcasting.com to listen to the live show. And then to chat, we do that via Element. So there's directions on there to get hooked up with the chat. And you can always reach out to Chin, and he'll get you hooked up with Element. He's kind of my tech guy. So definitely head on over there. I believe he has a email, and I will get more details on that. He has a Changing Earth email. I just can't remember the specifics of it at this moment, but feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Prepper Broadcasting Network. Feel free to reach out to Chin, and his connection is definitely available on my website. But for the future, we go live on Sunday at 5:30 Central Standard Time on Prepper Broadcasting Network. So I just wanted to let you know that change is coming. The audio drama is ready to go. It will also be airing on the Prepper Broadcasting Network as well as its own site, so you can go over there. We're going to do some fantastic things with it on Prepper Broadcasting Network, have some binge days, have some really exciting things happening around the audio drama. So season 1 is going to be coming very, very soon, so stay tuned for that news. Let's get right into the bitter end because I have lots of catch up to do as far as Changing Earth news goes, plus that great interview from Prepper Camp for you. So last week, Dexter had this really hard night, and he ended up on Mom and Dad's sofa. So this week, we're going to catch back up with Erica and see how that story is progressing. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into Chapter 10 of The Bitter End. Chapter 10. Erica exited her room in the morning with her traveling pack, and Vince close on her heels. "What's he doing here?" Erica asked as she put her pack down by the sofa. Vince looked at Erica in confusion, replying, "I don't know." He put his pack next to hers. "Let's just grab some food and go before he wakes up." Peeling her hard-boiled egg, Jeannie sat at the table. Vince was filling their thermoses with coffee. "Is he going?" Jeannie wondered, noticing Dexter sleeping on the couch. "No, he wasn't supposed to be here," Erica replied. "Are you two ready to go?" Vince asked. "Go where?" Dex asked, rousing from his slumber. The three of them looked at Dexter. There would be no avoiding the conversation now. "Dex, you weren't supposed to be here," Erica told him. "Why not?" he asked, noticing their packed bags sitting by the sofa. "Where are you going?" Erica was silent for a moment, looking to Vince. Her husband shrugged back at her, unsure of what to do. "We're going to get Dr. Bones," Vince admitted truthfully. "He's the only one who knows if the baby is yours or not." "Does Bennett know?" Dexter asked, remembering the feelings of betrayal he felt when he found out Bennett had told Megan about the team Dexter sent to retrieve the child. Of course not, Erica replied snappily, looking about her as if Bennett was going to pop out of the woodwork. He'd never let us go, but it's the easiest way to get the answer without coming face to face with TJ. Their conversation was interrupted by the door opening. Star and Rob came through it. I didn't know Dex was coming, Star said enthusiastically. Star? Rob? You two are in on this? Dexter asked. Star's smile faded, realizing that Dexter's presence wasn't expected. Dexter, the plan is already in motion, Vince told him. Are you coming or staying? If you stay, you better keep your mouth shut, Erica told him sternly. I'll stop by the house and get my stuff, Dexter answered, chiding himself for not thinking of Dr. Bones. What are you going to tell Megan? Vince asked. My stuff's above ground and she's below, Dexter said, avoiding the conversation about the woman. You're not going to tell her you're leaving? Erica inquired, knowing the young lady would worry. I'll leave a vague note, Dexter assured his mother. The group's eyes suddenly focused on the hall as the door to the bedroom with the tunnel to the underground opened. Mom, I have to talk to you, Daniel bellowed as he approached. But he stopped short, taking in the scene. They were all dressed for the cold, and their bags were packed. What are you guys doing? Erica rolled her eyes at Vince, knowing the young man would want to come. Vince smiled at her, thinking the same thing. We're going on a mission, Daniel. Mom was just coming to get you. You want to come? Dexter asked, smiling mischievously. Oh, yeah, Daniel beamed. Erica rolled her eyes, but Vince said, Get your stuff. Gear smiled brightly, waiting with Hall and Jefferson as he watched Vince and Erica arrive at the greenhouse. Looks like you brought a couple extra fighters along, he joked, noting the presence of Dex and Daniel. Mom couldn't go without me, Dexter said with a wide grin. Or me, Daniel added, stepping forward. Nice to see you, boys, Gear answered. You all set? Erica wondered. The compost trucks will take us to the outer wall. Then we can take troop transports to the line. After that, we're on our own, Gear explained, relaying the plan. Sounds like fun, Dexter responded jovially. He was curious how they intended to pull this off. Their faces covered, only the captain of the transport was trusted with their true identities. We should get to the front line of the western side of Brady mid-afternoon, the captain informed them. As they arrived, Erica stared out the back of the truck. She mumbled sadly to Vince. The volunteers look like nothing more than skin and bone, even in their winter clothes. They only have a few houses and barns to keep warm in. The eastern line is in shambles, Vince admitted, watching the soldiers come and go. They mostly live in those snow shelters, he explained, pointing at the bumps in the snow. It keeps them hidden. I wish we could have brought more supplies for them, Erica declared. She saw the looks of anticipation that the soldiers directed at the transports, hoping for a supply shipment. Bennett is aware of the situation. He's sending supplies for their bellies and rifles, Vince assured her. All we have to do is hold the line until Bennett takes out Javier, right? Then the reinforcements are coming this way, she asked. That's the plan, Vince agreed. Once Javier is taken out, at least the north will be safe. Then we can push east and hope that the cartels in the south don't advance further north while we're preoccupied, Vince explained. As Erica watched the faces go by, they slowly made their way south. The fighting subsided and the land was barren and bleak. Remember, Erica, you have to stay hidden, Vince reminded her. Rumors of your presence on the border would spread to both sides. I know, Erica confirmed, carefully scanning the crowd they were coming closer to. There she is, Erica declared quietly, nudging Vince. She pointed to a rugged-looking pickup waiting near a militia gate. Vince followed Erica's gaze, smiling under his face mask. Yup, there she is, Vince declared, breathing a sigh of relief. Dexter's curiosity perked watching his father's reaction. Who are we meeting? He asked Star. Star shrugged back at him. They planned this family outing, Star said sarcastically. The transport stopped on the other side of the militia gate. Erica hopped out, waiting for the rest of the crew.
The other fighters went towards the compound, ready to receive their orders. "Come on, guys," Vince told the crew, leading them toward the truck they had seen outside the gate. Erica followed closely behind Vince with Star and Gear at her side. Jefferson and Hall followed them, but Dexter lagged back, ensuring his brother was keeping up in the thick snow. Janelle Akerson rolled down the window. "I was scared you weren't going to make it." Janelle was the attendee to Governor Dixon, and the only one Vince and Erica had entrusted with the details of this secret mission. Any problems, she wondered? "No," Erica told her, making sure no one was taking notice of them. "Thanks for doing this." "I just happened to be in the neighborhood," Janelle teased with a smile. "You're early," Vince added. "The governor gave me extra time to get a load of people out so I could be here when you arrived," she commented. "Come on, get in. We can discuss it in the heat." They piled into the truck. Vince, Erica, Star, and Dexter sat in the front with Janelle. "How did I get stuck in the freezing cold truck bed?" Gear questioned as he piled into the back with the rest of the crew. "At least there are blankets," Jeannie chirped. "Thanks, Janelle," Daniel commented, happy to have the extra layer of warmth. Smiling at the passengers in the back, Erica turned to Janelle and asked curiously, "How's Dixon holding up?" "Honestly," she wondered. "Yeah," Vince added, surprised by her response. "It's over, guys," she admitted. "Swenson is relentless. However he got in charge, he's stomping what is left of the South into submission. The cold is the only thing keeping the wolves at bay." "Then you have to come west," Erica insisted, concerned for her safety. "We will, but for now we have to save as many people as we can." "I get that," Erica replied. "You guys know the plan. I'll get you guys around Brady and about an hour and a half northeast. But the feds have been patrolling heavily above that. You'll have to get yourselves out," Janelle relayed. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "We knew the dangers before we came," Vince said confidently. Star and Erica shook their heads in agreement. Dexter looked at his family with surprise. He didn't realize the risk his parents were willing to take on his behalf. They weren't even going to tell me they were leaving, he thought, stunned. The trip went on, and Vince inquired about Janelle's adopted son. How was Badger doing? He's normally so calm and focused on what he can do, but right now, we're all scared, Janelle admitted. You have to get him out as soon as possible. That boy has the biggest heart. The world will need folks like him when all this is said and done, Vince urged her. As the hours passed, Erica asked Janelle, how did you end up working with Dixon? I've never heard that story. My family had coastal property in South Carolina. We were saved from the wave by a trip to friends in Texas, but we instantly became refugees. The survivors banded together to fight to keep Texas free. My husband, God rest his soul, died in a battle. Then, within the year, the sickness came and I lost both my children to the flu. I was beside myself with grief. I was ready to give up. I was going to allow myself one more meal and then walk into the battle line, straight into a bullet. I took my plate in to wash it, and I heard a little boy crying in the corner. Knowing the pain in his tears, he admitted that his father had just died, and his mom died in the Great Quake. I knew God had sent him to me and me to him for a reason. Badger saved me, and I saved him. As she talked, Erica carefully watched the horizon through her binoculars for signs of danger. Interrupting her story, Erica asked, "What's that?" She pointed into the expanse. Leaning in between the seats, Vince took the binoculars Erica was handing him and looked out. Far off on the horizon, fighters in black uniforms were searching a home. He saw the little black dots moving about, and there was still a driver waiting behind the wheel of their vehicle. Erica was rapidly scanning the terrain for viable cover. The ruins of old homes covered the landscape. Their dilapidated walls stuck out of the snowdrifts, and roofs collapsing under the weight of the frozen water provided a color break in the vast whiteness. 4 miles north, right? Erica asked. Yes, Janelle replied. Stop the truck. Looks like this is as far as we go, Erica insisted. As Janelle complied, Erica told her, Turn around and go. She pulled her face mask up and goggles down. Then she wrapped her head in a scarf before she stepped out into the frozen expanse with her family. Slinking into the nearby homes, they moved east as fast as possible. Knowing time was limited, Erica watched the soldiers that had spotted Janelle's truck speed down the road after her. Hiding in the corner of a home, they caught their breath for a moment. I can't believe you guys had this all planned, Dexter remarked quietly. This is crazy. Dr. Bones has the answer to the million-dollar question, and he's not as heavily guarded, Vince explained to his son. Is it mine? Dexter commented, kicking himself for putting them into this position. That's right. We can find out for sure, Star said, backing him up. Dr. Bones will have a lot of equipment, and that will take time to move, Jefferson added. Rob and Gare came back from scouting ahead and beckoned them forward. We're good to go, Gare told them. Let's move, Erica commented, carefully inching forward while scanning for federal forces. Follow closely, Daniel whispered to Jeannie. Watch how they move and copy it. They know how to stay hidden. Daniel's right, Hall noted to the young woman. Mistakes out here are deadly. Stay alert. Hall had taken to staying with Dexter to watch over the youngsters. Star led them up to a dilapidated building that they could hide in and peeked out the remains of a window. They're on the move, she noted to her mother. Erica nodded, staring out at the people. The road was packed with soldiers and refugees. Oh my gosh, Daniel exclaimed quietly. They're all from the north, aren't they? Jeannie questioned softly. I think so, Vince agreed. Dexter remembered seeing a massive movement like this before when they were traversing Montana. We'll never make it across, Dexter fretted. We need to set up a perimeter and dig in until tonight, Star suggested, knowing the refugees would have to be housed by nightfall or they would freeze. Set it up, Star, Erica told her, backing up to find a better hiding spot. We'll need to stay warm until we can go. The black shirts can't move in the cold, but if we're frozen from waiting, we won't be able to either, Gare interjected. 2 scouts circle the team and we'll huddle together. Hopefully we won't be popsicles, Erica said sarcastically, but it was a genuine concern. We have to keep the shifts short, Hall replied, knowing how deadly the freezing temperatures could be. Jefferson and I will take the first shift. We'll use our tarp and wrap it around the outside of our huddle. That should keep us all warmer, Gare suggested. They packed together and waited for the severe sub-zero temperatures that the night would bring. Jefferson and Hall returned shivering with cold and switched places with Star and Gare. The waiting continued. It's your turn in the center, Erica, Rob told her, scooting his way to the perimeter. I wish we had a fire, Daniel moaned. You know it could give us away, Dexter told him, secretly sharing his brother's desire. He watched Star and Gare return. There's another group out there in the homes. Star's teeth chattered as she spoke. The road is starting to clear, Gare added, huddling into the group. Get in here and get warm. Vince and I will keep an eye on it, Erica said, leaving the sanctuary of the group. Moving east, Erica spied the small group hiding out much like they were. Erica's nose had found their location when it sniffed out the small fire they had. Vince tapped on Erica's shoulder, motioning for her to continue towards the road. Watching the activity slowly, Erica noticed a crew of black shirts doing a final sweep of the homes by the main route, and they were headed towards Vince and Erica. Erica nudged Vince, pointing at 2 of the soldiers who had broken off towards the home where her children were huddled for warmth. Sneaking backwards towards their hiding spot, Vince and Erica hid in the crook of an old building. Erica watched the silent communications of the soldiers looking to enter the structure. Thinking fast, Erica picked up a brick that had fallen out of the wall and threw it. There was a loud crash. Hesitating in front of the door, the soldiers turned their heads in the direction of the sound. Communicating silently with one another, they approached the location of the noise. Vince waited for them to pass by before throwing another brick. The sound led them towards the group with the fire. The 2 soldiers communicated silently to the other as they stood in the doorway across from Vince and Erica's hiding spot. One of the fighters indicated that he smelt smoke, and the other picked up his radio. "We have refugees spotted. My tracker number is 900652, requesting a pickup," he said quietly, raising his rifle. They slowly moved forward, and then Vince and Erica saw them moving beyond the homes in the distance. Vince and Erica slowly crept back to their loved ones. "Damn, Mom!" Dexter cursed as they arrived. "Too long," was all he said, pointing his fingers at his wrist where a watch would be. "A sweep crew came through. They almost had the drop on you guys," Vince told them. "Now's our time," Erica insisted, leaving the home with her family in tow. They crossed the street in the black of night. "That's his caravan," Jefferson noted, once they traversed a short distance on the other side. "Those are his tents." "We got him now," Erica elated, following the scouts forward.
The Moore family vacation tends to leave Bennett rather in a ticked-off mood, and they are headed straight into the heart of the lion's den right now. Going after Dr. Bones, trying to rattle the cages a little bit, so we'll have to see how that works out for them. In the meantime, I want to go ahead and play this interview that we did at Prepper Camp, bring you a little bit of my family vacation, and with my family away from home that I only get to see once a year at Prepper Camp, and fantastic people. Can't wait to see them next year. So let's go ahead and check out the interview from Prepper Camp.
What is up, PBN family? We are here at the North Tent, Prepper Camp 2021, and this is a pretty incredible situation because Ryan and Colin Buford are sitting across from me. We got Andrew sitting across from me live and in person, Jordan, Sarah Hathaway. Phil is upon us, and we're going to knock out this live broadcast and talk Prepper Camp 2021. It is 2021, right?
Yes, it is.
So what everybody here is teaching, right? Literally.
Yes.
All
Yes.
the MOF guys are not. That's okay.
yeah.
But we
Lame.
no.
Buzz off.
There will be. They will be.
I've done my time in the
You
trenches.
did.
I think we should probably hear from the Prepper Camp virgins first, right?
Oh, well.
Not as painful as
I
we
wasn't
thought.
gonna call it out like that.
So, yeah, no, it's been pretty badass, really. So I'm really glad to be here, and it's been a pretty intense experience to fly all the way over from Washington State across the country and see everybody in person
Oh,
for the
man,
first time
amazing.
ever,
Amazing.
and
Instead
realize,
of just phone conversation.
yeah, I thought all the lore about how short Jordan was just some sort of joke, but it's pretty true. So it's fun to watch and see everybody and just be a part of this whole thing. It's
really
an
cool, right?
experience for sure.
Yeah, it's really something else being like out here, like talking to people, having conversations with people, and it's so natural because the idea of prepping is not foreign to them. So like everything flows so it's like it's just so different.
That's
And
the
it's cool.
atmosphere, man. It's
Yeah.
like stepping into a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the same page. There's no getting them up to speed, you know? It's like, whoa, you all know what's going on.
You don't have to wade in the waters first, just jump in.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Beautiful way
Yeah,
to put
you
it.
just
Beautiful
jump
way to
in.
put it,
Well,
for sure.
Deep end.
And the thing I find really cool about Prepper Camp is like, we've always said for years, like prepping is this huge idea and there's all these different disciplines that cross-pollinate into it. And usually you find yourself having to like start the conversation with somebody to figure out which one of those aspects of prepping they kind of might buy into. And out here, since everybody's already bought in, you get to really deep dive into conversations with people in ways you can't do with the general public. Because when I talk to anybody out here, whether they're a homesteader or a self-defense person or a gun guy or a militia person or anything, they've already bought in. So then you get to like dive into their world, they can dive into yours, and you can get so much deeper into these subjects that you can in any other format. I mean, that's why I tell everybody every year that Prepper Camp started off because I wanted to learn. And after, this is our, Andrew, fourth year here? This is our fourth year here. Now I come here to commune with my tribe.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I come to recharge my batteries every year and go home pumped up, ready for another 11 months of podcasting, just to turn around and come here again to see my tribe again.
It's like the
Yeah.
family reunion now.
Yeah, this is my
Yeah.
third year, and I still second year teaching, and I'll tell you the number of people who come in who go, I didn't know what this was going to be. I'll be back again tomorrow. I've had someone show up to the same, 2 different people show up for the same class 2 days in a row. So,
yeah,
I
same
mean,
class 2 days in a row. I really.
Yeah, well,
that's been a
like
good
Phil was
aspect.
saying too, you don't really have to dive into anything, but you get to dive deeper, and you start sharing personal experiences with people, and you start learning a lot more than you thought you'd ever know, and it's just crazy because you build off what you already do know.
Yeah, the audience. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but the audience here expects way above 101 content.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
you can aggravate them if you get too basic. You know what I mean? And the only complaints I've ever heard from prepper camp attendees is that class was good, but it was a little too basic for me. You know,
And
which
even
is really
I'm
cool.
teaching the urban survival class, and we go into a lot of deep things, but the feedback from the audience as well,
yeah.
I'm actually finding that I'm learning from them as well.
yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to use that in the class tomorrow.
See,
You
that's
know?
what happened to
Yeah.
me about a plant that I didn't realize could be used for fiber as far as a core ditch or anything else. So I learned that, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so
and then
it's
it ended
mutually
up being
beneficial.
presented. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's unique to prepping, because it's always been that way ever since I
I
started
think so, because
podcasting.
we encourage a more interactive, even classroom as teachers, because
Yeah.
we even said on the network, I'm teaching you and you're teaching me, even as we're podcasting.
learning.
So, I mean,
Sure.
I love it. I love the interaction, because I will tell them straight up. I'll say, okay, ask questions, because if you don't, I'm going to start pointing at you, and I'm going to start
Right.
asking you questions. So if you don't want to
Yeah,
be Johnny
and
on the
like,
spot, you best start asking.
Teaching martial arts and things like that, it's not like I'm not going to be learning, except for how to maybe not do things from my
Right.
students, but in this case, you have so many people that are a wealth of information on
Right.
their own right that it's really,
How
really
about
a
the
special
kids?
experience.
Kids everywhere.
I love it.
It's awesome.
My son just passed straight out at the booth today. He was just wore
He was
wore
down
out.
at my
He
booth
just
yesterday.
crashed,
Him
yeah.
and another young boy, and I was just
Yep.
explaining fiber to him, and they were loving it.
It's great here because usually you can't let your kid run wild,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And not that he's running wild,
No, yeah.
but because he's respectful and whatnot. But you're
Just put a
you're
leash
the
on him.
worry, right? You're growing gray hairs. Where's my kid? Where's my kid?
Yeah.
But here you're like, nah, it's a safe environment.
It is weird,
The
the
people
level
are
of
great.
safety.
and-
Here.
Yeah.
The level
How
of
did you
safety
get that?
here
Oh,
is
they were
weird.
feeding me.
Well,
Right.
I mean, I had a
Right.
conversation with somebody, I think last year, and we were actually discussing the same thing, that there were so many people that just their kids were running around playing together with people they just met, and everybody had this sense of like, we all know all these people, and we can kind of feel them out pretty fast. It's just a component of like, the kind of mindset we have, and we're comfortable letting our kids interact with each other. And the guy made the comment to me, he's like, you know what the funny part of this situation is? He said, there are more guns here at Prepper Camp than a National Guard armory.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, but this is probably the safest place in North America this weekend, because every single person out here is a prepper, military veteran, first responder, firefighter, paramedic. Everybody out here has the same mindset. Everybody out here is looking to make sure that everybody's having a good time and we're safe and we're all taken care of. It's like a couple years ago, Dave Jones cut his hand at the booth, and here comes one of our patrons who happens to be a critical care paramedic on life flights, and he's just bandages him up right there in the friggin' booth. It's like, I said today, I'm like, this is like the perfect place to have a medical emergency. Because there's going to be 5 people lined up to take care of you.
But it
Perfect
is.
place for a medical emergency.
However, we don't encourage you to have a medical emergency.
If disaster broke loose while we were all here, that would be very unfortunate for the country. But also, do you think there would be too many chiefs and not enough Indians?
Honestly, like, totally taking that in a direction you didn't think, I think everybody would probably bug out of here almost immediately.
Yeah,
Because,
fair
like, you
enough.
look at my
Yeah.
situation, me and my wife and daughter are back in
Good
Louisiana.
point. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
It
outta
is.
it
here.
would more or less be, well, and I'm not tied to anywhere, actually. So,
Yeah.
I have a cat.
I have my go
I
Well,
do have
some
a cat,
some
but-
people would Lord of the Flies and, like, set up a civilization out here in the woods to take over the
Right.
country.
I take that back. I probably would go to stop people a few people I know from doing something stupid, because their mindset of prepping is, I'm just going to take what they have. I'm just going to be one of those
that's
smack
the
you, are you
worst.
stupid kind of moments.
Yeah.
But you
And
know,
they're just going to give it to you. Don't worry.
But I noticed that the longer prepping as a community continues to grow as a community, and the longer all of these shows on PBN all continue to grow and reach out to people, we find fewer and fewer of that type of things. I'm just going to go steal the neighbor's stuff.
Well, it's
like-
usually people outside of prepping
Yeah.
that I see that from, and I'm trying to
Or the worst is, I'm coming to your
them.
house.
Oh, Lord.
God.
Come on.
But I guess
now.
what I'm saying is, like, the community itself is maturing.
Yeah.
Big
You know,
time.
It is.
Yeah.
the
Big
community
time.
itself is moving past well, I've got a 10-pound bag of rice and 100 bullets. I'm good. I'm set. I don't need anything else. We're all moving past that, and now we're looking at things like sustainability and solar,
Community.
I'm starting
building
to see,
mags and building groups in
I'm
our home
starting to
cities.
see more openness, though, on the outside for preppers because we have.
Well,
on
if
some
20 if
aspects.
2020 and 2021 haven't made you a little open to prepping, I
Yeah.
think you missed the boat. But that's just me.
They're still licking the glass, okay?
Well, I mean, but speaking of being open to prepping, father-son here, the duo, had a class, and you guys had a class revolving around getting people into prepping. Like, how did that class go? How did that class go about, and then, like, what kind of feedback did you guys get?
You know, it was actually, I thought it was pretty good, and it was good for Colin in a big way because here we are, we sit in front of a microphone, in front of a computer, in a room by ourselves, and we're doing it over the internet where there's no interaction. It's pretty much talking to a screen. But you come out here and you're doing it in front of a crowd of live people looking back at you. It's a different experience. Public speaking is a survival skill, and it's one of the few that I haven't had to be able to pass on yet. So this has been a survival skill training in disguise in a lot of ways. But in regard to the class, it's been really successful. I think not a lot of people have been attending, but we have some tough competition with James's class on entrepreneurship, and there's another one on PsyOps that I think people are really diving into head first. But there are some people that we are making real connections with, and the presentation that we have is not basic, but in a way it's eye-opening to a lot of folks who think that it's difficult to get family and friends engaged in prepping. So, and it's like the number one question, how do I get my blank to start prepping? And the thing is, like we say at the beginning of the presentation, that all you got to do is change one word in that sentence. How do I encourage my blank to start prepping? And that changes the whole meaning, but you still have the same result for both people.
I agree. I'm going to add on that one. When I was in college, I had to do a communications class, and I talked about prepping. But instead, I talked about having an emergency kit in your vehicle in case you broke down. Well, once you called it an emergency kit, everybody's mindset completely changed. And the next thing I know, everybody's got an emergency kit in their vehicle. And it was just a plastic container with some certain things, and I listed it off like we would keep in one of our bags in our car. And as long as you say emergency kit or emergency bag, more people are more open to it, because as soon as you say prepper, it's almost a derogatory term. And it's just off-putting. But yeah, exactly. It was wonderful changing one word just to see the whole group.
Yeah, and it's hey, it's public speaking. It's hard.
It is.
I don't like it. But it's interesting because, like, I remember coming to the first prepper camp when Phil and I, and then with Uncle Randy, and we did that first year, and then I went home and, like, was telling my mom and dad about it. And I mean, anybody, like, I consider my parents, I say that they're closet preppers. Like, I was raised where we hunted every single year. My mom canned meat. She canned everything from the garden. My dad, they always bought beef, a cow, or they had all kinds of stuff in the freezer. Like, they had generators and stuff like that for when the power goes out. And they never called themselves preppers. Well, my mom and dad, I got them to finally come this year. And it's really funny because my mom was all excited because she found 2 backpacks. One small one for, like, an everyday carry. She's like, I got everything in this one, so, like, it's my kind of like my little get home bag. Yeah. And then she goes, and she's like, but I just bought another one that's bigger for my bug out bag.
Oh, man.
And then, yeah. So and then my dad, right? And so then my dad, he bought a backpack, and he's been, every time I've seen it, he's had it on.
That's
and he put, like, water filters and knives and
I
all kinds of
couldn't
stuff.
get my mom that far, but I got her into actually keeping extra staples in the house. So
That's
it's like,
start.
it's the little steps of keeping, because I told her when certain things were, hey, this is going to happen, I need you to do this. Well, I didn't. She'll go, oh, I didn't get the full amount, but I did get this much. I said, you know what? It's a start. At least you tried.
Baby steps. My mom does the same thing. She's like, this prepping, this preparing, this stuff that you do. I'm like, Mom, you're a prepper. Like, you have tons
Oh,
of cans.
does she give you the, I don't understand it, but I'm going to listen.
No, she won't even listen. Yeah, no. She's more stubborn than I am. So she's like straight up like,
Well,
we're not listening. I'm like, Mom, you are.
But on that note, like most people that listen to PBN and MOF know that, like, my family just went through Hurricane Ida down in Louisiana, and, like, I had more than one person when I was talking to them before and after the storm. They referred to Hurricane Ida as like, wow, this has got to be like a prepper Super Bowl. Like, this is the big game. You're either going to get your crap together or you're going to falter. And I reflected back on that, and I thought to myself, I'm like, I consider myself a prepper. I use the term because it's in the public lexicon. Everybody knows what a prepper is. Whether it's derogatory or not, you at least know the term.
Right.
But then I think to myself, I'm like, all the stuff I'm doing, I learned from my parents. Because we grew up on the Gulf Coast. Yep. And everybody knows that by, middle of July, you better have your hurricane supplies gear. You better have your food and your water, your batteries for your flashlight. You have to have all that stuff.
Well, it's funny that you say that because while on the coast, when all that was going on, people were like, oh, well, it's Louisiana. This is just a lifestyle. They know how to get through this. It was more or less bragging that y'all are accustomed to this weather, that you're already naturally ready.
And I wish that was universal across the board. But like, just look at like my little cul-de-sac in my neighborhood, 6 houses. I was by far the most prepared of the bunch, which you would kind of expect. I deep dive these subjects. 2 of the other houses, I mean, they had snacks, they had a little bit of food, peanut butter and bread and water. They were okay. They weren't in great shape, but they were okay. And then 3 of those houses were literally not prepared to deal with the emergency they stayed for. Actually, no.
They stayed.
One evacuated. 2 were completely screwed. Like my whole street minus one person, so 5 of us families stayed for the hurricane. One of them bugged out the next day, actually no, 2 of them bugged out the next day. They figured to go stay in a hotel room, come back in a couple of days when things are calmed down a little bit. And 3 of us stayed, and of the 3 of us that stayed, only us were really in a pretty decent setup to deal with the problems we had. And like I was reaching. It's weird because like in my own little group of friends in that area, a lot of these guys are like military veterans. We're used to living in pretty crappy places and having to pull our pants up and deal with problems. So when I reached out to them, they're like, "Yeah, dude, we got generators, we got fuel, we got food, we got water, we're good. Call me if you need anything." But then as I reached out further and further into like the scattered group of friends, I found more and more people that were like, "Yeah, we don't have a generator." And it's like 95 degrees outside and 90% relative humidity. Nobody has a generator. Nobody has fuel. Nobody has a window.
Did you ever find out, was it because they waited too late or they just weren't ready and decided they were going to try to wait it out?
It was a combination of the two because the problem with Hurricane Ida was that it was originally supposed to go west of Baton Rouge. And had that happened, we wouldn't have seen wind speeds over 50 miles an hour. And we were ready for that. Mm-hmm. And when the storm track shifted east of Baton Rouge, it cleaned our clock. Yeah. And normally when a hurricane hits the Gulf, as soon as it gets over land, it starts losing strength. This thing was still Cat 3 by the time it got north of New Orleans. I mean, it was... I saw one meteorologist say, "Oh, it was down to a Cat 2 by the time it got to my town," and I was like, "No." I was watching this. I was watching the storm track and watching the weather stations. It was still a 3 by the time it got to me.
Yeah, it was supposed to like partial hit us in Texas, and then it whoop to Louisiana, and I'm like, "Uh-oh."
Originally before it headed towards y'all, we were told it was going to hit us over on the coast, and then when we heard it diverted, I'm like, "Whew!" And then I was like, "Oh snap!"
Yeah, but
you guys been getting hammered.
But what I find interesting coming out of this is like one of my big, I want to call it failings as a prepper, has been like I've been really hesitant to either set up or try to join a MAG, a mutual assistance group. Yeah. Some of that's been because I'm not a naturally outgoing person. I don't like meeting new people despite what appearances might be. I'm very nervous about meeting new people, even though I disguise it very well. And like I always have this deep trust issue where it's like if I'm going to depend on this group, I'm depending on everybody in that group to do what they're supposed to do so they don't weigh me down. Now on the back of this, that we caught, like on my street, we caught the worst of it. We had 3 oak trees down on the property, 2 hit the house, took 2 days to chainsaw our way out of it. And like, I've now completely accepted what's been beat into my head over the years, that we have to reach out to these 2 other houses that seem to kind of have their stuff somewhat in gear and form a group, just the 3 houses. Because it's like I told my wife the other day, I'm like, if I could do it, I'm like, I am the only man in these 3 houses. I'm the most young, the most able-bodied, the strongest. I know things like personal protection, brush hauling, chainsaw, hard labor. That's going to fall to me because I'm the most physically able. But if I could lean on those other 2 households to say, hey, if you have some food and you have some fuel, I've got the generator and the window units. We can all bunk down in my house and stay cool. Y'all can help us out with like taking care of my daughter, managing the house, managing the meals. and free my wife up so she doesn't have to take care of our daughter. She could be out there hauling brush with me.
Right.
Now the 3 households can kind of buddy together and work these big problems.
Its own little tight-knit
That's
where
the
everybody
problem.
takes on a part of the burden.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the problem I've found is local, right? So I've formed groups before. I've reached out to people, except it's across the town,
Right,
or
but
it's
a
like
lot of
other
people-
towns away, and those aren't the people you're going to be
No,
surviving
well,
with when
where I
stuff
was,
goes down.
there
you
was
know?
no way the neighbors would have been like that. No way. And our community or our neighborhood was not like that. Half of us would have liked to have shot the other one just by accident. I'm just saying. So
But like that's to me that's been like the double-edged sword of doing a prepping podcast.
Wait.
Is that
is the hammock tree gone?
no, it survived.
The one with the little tree house?
I'm shocked it survived.
I am surprised too, because from the pictures it looked like that was the tree
It was in
that
the middle
fell.
of all the trees.
Wow.
It's still standing.
I am impressed.
Me too.
I honestly thought that one, if that one had fallen, it would have gone through your living room.
It wouldn't have gone through. It would have gone through my office.
Oh.
So I'd
Yeah.
had a skylight in my podcast room. But
New view.
But like that's the double-edged sword of being a prepper podcaster is like, I had Andrew and a ton of other people all saying, dude, I wish I lived closer so I'd come and give you a hand.
Right.
And the problem
what
is
I'm
like
saying, the reach out.
Yeah, the tribe is so diversified and so spread out because of these national bonds we've created and international in some cases with our listeners, but they're too far away to be part of a mag. So now I find myself in that position of like all this time I've been super focused on expanding the tribe because I just wanted more people to be able to take care of themselves.
Right.
That was why we started the podcast in the first place, was because I don't want to see a person ahead of time. Now I'm seeing the fact that I expended so much effort in that direction, I totally overlooked the fact that my local support group is very bare bones.
Right, and you need that local community.
Have to.
It's all
And-
about
Or
it.
you're going to be carrying too much of the burden.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
again,
tell you-
it's one of those situations where before I ended up with 3 oak trees down on my front lawn, like a Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane, you drop a couple of branches, I have it cleared up in an hour, and I'm on the front porch drinking beer.
Yeah.
But this was such a big problem when this Cat 4 hurricane hit us. It has now, like talking about how we're all maturing as a group, it has kind of opened my eyes to the fact that the things that I thought were low priority are now high priority. And I now have to seriously change like some of my opinions and some of my direction. But that's what we've all done as a group. We've all grown throughout this journey of becoming preppers and then trying to bring other people into the mindset. We've all learned. We've learned from each other.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're going to push ourselves further and then try to bring other people along behind us.
Sure. Yeah, the key is neighboring. You got to relearn the art of neighboring. I mean, it's essential. If you're in a position where you have neighbors close enough that they can be friends and they can be affiliates in disaster, because I didn't see any way that I could get a neighborhood like mine clued in, because I live in a quiet neighborhood full of lots of old people, and then, newer young people move in. And until we started neighboring, you know what I mean? Like knocking up on people's doors. We started the community garden. We started the garden group. We started I started farming my son out to walk people's dogs for money. and all of a sudden you're not doing any kind of cool tactical thing. You're just being a neighbor, And then those things, like what Phil's
Well, you're
talking about, they
establishing a
happen.
rapport,
Yeah,
and
they
then
just
just going
happen.
from there.
They happen naturally. You get people in.
Tactical. It's called special forces.
Yeah, well, that's true. Good point.
Back to basics, right?
Yeah.
Back to basics of community.
It really,
instead of-
that's really what it is. I mean, when a storm comes, before it comes, in next door, there's about 2 to 3 women who say, there's maybe about 6 houses of older couples that need to be checked on, and we'll run down the list and say who's going to check on Linda, who's going to check. You know what I mean? And I didn't do that. It wasn't like, I got this brilliant prepper plan, I'm going to establish. I didn't do any of that. You know what I mean? That
Right,
just started to happen.
Yeah.
And because people are cool. But
Yeah,
if
I
they
just
don't
found
know
out
you,
that,
you know what I
like-
mean? That you put yourself in that weird position.
I just found out that like 3 of the 5 houses on my road are all preppers too, and I was like, yeah. Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember when a
Good
tree
news.
went through my neighbor's house one time, and I was walking up to see it, and just kind of console him, because, I mean, the old man was the husband. I don't mean the old man. You call the husband the old man around my way. He was picking up dog poop in his backyard. Like, I can't look at the house. Like, I can't come to grips with this thing. And on my way up there, I was like, hey, generator's on if you guys need to, charge phones or whatever you need it for. Just come on over. And this couple that I'd never really talked to before, they were down there and they were just like, oh, we're good, man. We're preppers. And they ran back up in their house. And I was like,
well, but since you mentioned that might have been like kind of the gateway drug to start getting some of my neighbors to think about prepping, because like,
oh yeah,
once we were in that situation where we had the house cleared, we had things kind of at a steady state, the generator's running, we had plenty of fuel. I was reaching out to my neighbors saying, hey, I know you don't have an air conditioning unit or generator. Come into my house and cool off in the hottest part of the day. I made a big old pot of red beans and rice, to feed anybody that wanted to come by. If you need to charge a phone, I got a Jackery, so right there, plug it in, hang out, put your feet up for a little while. And it's been this new element of like trying to mentor the people close to me in prepping and show them like, hey, look at the situation you have at home. Look at the situation I have here. I got a 5K generator keeping all my food from spoiling. We got plenty of food. We got plenty we can cook. We can share with y'all. We got plenty of water. We've got power. Come over and take advantage of this while I have the excess to offer to you. But what I'm going to do in the next month is reach out to those same households who seem receptive to it and say, hey, guys.
For next time.
We need to have a conversation.
And there is going to
because-
be a next time. If you watch the Earth changes, we're headed towards it right now.
Yeah.
So getting them on board is essential.
And that's exactly what I was telling my wife. I'm like, if we can get these two households on our, not even necessarily on our level, but on our wavelength, and we can tell them, look, if you put away 10 or 15 extra gallons of fuel so that you can help me run this generator longer, you're welcome to throw an air mattress down at my house and keep in the air conditioning, bring your food over, stick it in my fridge so it doesn't spoil. Let's pool our resources. But let me show you how we can make this horrible, awful situation a little more comfortable.
Mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and encouraging them too, not just so that they keep relying solely on him to do it. Yeah, I mean that's the best thing is showing them, but also making them not codependent upon you, because then that's another mouth or 3 mouths or how many ever are in the household, and you're not set for that. You're set for your 3 or the 3 of y'all versus 12 other people.
And I think these two particular households, that's going to work out well, because like the other day, one of these two households, they babysat for us, so me and my wife could go out on a date. And I tried to pay my neighbor's daughter, who's living with her temporarily, for babysitting my daughter, and she just kind of gave me this look, and she's like, you literally invited us into your house when you had oak trees in your front yard. I'm not taking your money. But it's one of those things where it's like, her perspective was...
It was a trade.
Her perspective was, you helped us when we needed it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to return it. Now my perspective is like, okay, I see that you have this aspect of give and take. Now I want to raise you up so that if you need to rely on me, that's fine, because I know that you'll pull what weight you can to try to make it to where it's not totally you to be independent on me. But now maybe I can get you up to my level where you can take care of yourself better.
I think right there is a prime example as preppers. We're not preppers who just want to keep quiet and keep to ourselves. Not saying that we don't, but we want to encourage people who actually want to try. It's not that we want to be stingy, but there's no point in offering a hand to someone who all they're going to do is take.
Yeah.
I mean, so I like that you're right there giving an example of how you're trying to spread that and have other people among you who does it too.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, I can't speak for everybody here, but I feel like a lot of us got into prepping for the same reason. We want to take care of our families. And then shortly after that, when we made the decision to become podcasters, we wanted to reach out to everybody else and teach them what we've learned to bring everybody up.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, it all comes down to family. That's always the motivating factor. You hardly ever run into single people, except for maybe Andrew, who's really down to like, I'm going to preserve this thing and make sure that it goes safe. And when you're dealing with a neighborhood, I mean, you just have to. One of the things that was always tough for me was to realize that you're going to be rejected. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be people who are like, we're not doing.
Well, all right, I'm going to tell you this.
Not even the prepper aspect of it, just the neighborly aspect
my
of it.
My favorite saying is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really got to take that
Well,
mindset.
you usually
not
make more.
everyone's
Well, you make the right friends that way, anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how you make the right friends. But,
Well, and I mean, community comes down to family, but it's not just blood. I mean, it's tribal, like Phil was saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, this is a
it's,
family.
It's brotherhood, it's fatherhood, it's any sort of guardianship. It goes like way beyond family, in air quotes.
Well, I mean, and come from a military background, like we in the military refer to each other as brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So I've always told people, I'm like, I'm a little odd in that, and like I have family that I don't really communicate with or keep a relationship with because I don't feel like they treat me like family. But then there are people who I only know through the military community, or I know them through the prepping community, that would give me anything they had to help me if I asked for it. Those are my family.
Yep.
It's not a blood or a relationship thing. It really is. It's a tribe, and that's the word I keep trying to use. Is we're building a tribe here, not just these hosts, not just our listenership, but we're trying to reach out into the community and say, let's all pool resources. Let's all pool knowledge. We can all learn from each other and build the tribe up so that when we're in that moment of need, when we're in that moment of emergency, we are able to care for ourselves because of what we've learned from each other.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
That was so solid.
You know, I mean, I sound like I'm really smart, but really I'm just a phenomenal BS artist. So.
What's all personal experiences then? How could you? No, that's great, man. I don't know if we really kind of sideways it on prepper camp. We didn't give too many.
Yeah, you know what? We always do that. Anytime it's all of us together.
Oh,
It happens.
But it's the fundamentals of what we are.
Well, you know what? One thing I did want to circle back on was the fact that when I started coming, which was 3 years ago, everybody was saying,
I think your first year was my first year, too.
Yeah. I need to get a group. I want to get a group. I don't know who to have in my group. You know, my neighbors are weird or whatever. And now at this point, most people that I talk to are in the position, you know, the people walking around buying coffee, doing the things. They're like, I got a couple people in a group, or I know a couple people who are preppers in my neighborhood, almost similar to our own stories, which is kind of weird about the evolution of it all. And I think the problems that we're having, because we are like subject matter experts, I hate that word more than anything.
I know.
But the problems that we are having, I think we always should remember that there's a good chance. Obviously, in some ways, we're evolving quicker than other people, but we probably have a lot of the same problems that the listeners do. You know what I mean? That's why my favorite moments on PBN were and are when we hit the wall as preppers. You know what I mean? I love those moments when we go, this happened, and
this is where I fell short.
It went real bad.
Yeah, this is where I need to improve. I'm taking notes, and it's going to be better next time.
I think that's where you gain people's trust and where you gain listenership in a big way. You know, because it's if you're
relatable.
always 100% right and you're always set up perfectly and nothing ever goes wrong, then it's like, who is this guy? You know, this guy don't exist. Everybody runs into problems.
Well, and I think that's also what's noteworthy about the majority of the hosts on this network is like I've said for years, like there's a lot of prepper shows out there where like the host is like he's a farmer, he's a homesteader, he's out in the middle of nowhere, he's already 100% off grid and perfectly set up, and he's the average person looks at that and says, I'm never gonna get there, so I'm never gonna try.
Well, okay,
but then you have people
quick.
But then you have people like a lot of us, like I live in a subdivision, I live in the suburbs.
I did have a more country lifestyle. Now mine has completely changed, and I am relearning how to be a prepper in a completely different situation. Mm-hmm. I don't have my garden, I don't have my chickens, I don't have the rooms where I can work on everything. I am literally rowing with it. I'm relearning how to be a
urban survivalist.
Yes, actually.
Well, not just urban, but almost a nomadic survivor.
Actually, nomadic would be the better because I am not steadfast or set in any place at the moment. I am literally.
Man, there used to be a great website you should read. I can't remember what the guy's name was.
Well,
it was something Nomad.
Yeah,
he did all that stuff.
It's literally trying to figure out what is going to be, especially with the cold coming up now. Well, what's going to be the best living process and everything else with everything going on. It's like, the change, during the summer that was fine, but now it's like, I've hit a whole new challenge as a prepper on the road.
But I think that's what makes all of us so relatable is that, like, I know we all talk about how we have families and those families go to school and we're at PTA meetings and our kids play sports with each other. And I mean, like we're all normal people. It sounds odd.
That's the beauty of it.
It sounds odd that you have to convince people that preppers can be normal people. We don't all just live in a bunker surrounded by ammo and MREs.
So overrated.
But it's the truth. It's what makes us all so relatable. Is we're all normal people. We have 9-to-5 jobs and we exist in the community, and yet there's this double life we lead where in the house we have these things. We do these things that some people might see as odd. But because we can reach out to a person who's just coming into prepping, or maybe live in the suburbs, or they live in the city, God forbid, that's a hell of a place to prep these days. But like in all those different situations, we always push the idea that like you can prep anywhere, in any situation.
Yeah, and
we
that's
just have to
where
figure out how to
I'm-
apply the principles to you.
Exactly, and that's what I'm working on. And it's funny is going into an area and be like, can I do this? Can I do this? Is this
can I get
ideal?
this?
You know,
Yeah.
it's a whole new thing.
How can I get out of here? That's a big one for you, right? How do we get out of a situation like that? Is it time to wrap up?
Yeah.
It's time
Yeah.
to wrap.
Yeah.
We're going to be
We got
wanted.
5 minutes.
We're going to be
Please do
wanted
shout
big
outs.
time.
Do shout outs.
Huge shout out to Rick and Jane Austin.
Oh, yes.
100%.
Especially
Here.
for rolling the dice and taking the chance on us, especially as new guys, and being able to give what we can. I mean, subject matter experts excuse me, is the farthest
Getting choked
from the
up over it.
description that I think we'd really deserve. But I appreciate it. I mean, the chance alone has been pretty stellar, and I think it's been a great experience for both of us.
As for me, I mean, I've loved it.
Yeah.
Every
Rick
moment
is
of
the
it.
godfather.
Yeah,
Yes,
he
he
is.
That's simple. All right, guys. Well, thanks. This was awesome. This may never even happen again.
No, it
BS
will.
next
I mean,
year.
I hope it does. But
Next
life is a crazy son of a bitch, you know?
Yeah, it
There's a
is.
good chance this podcast laid out with you guys in real time never happens again. So I really do appreciate you all, you know? And having you all here is
Wow, usually I'm
surreal.
like the doomsday one. The most.
I'm not even saying doomsday. I'm just saying, like, maybe you guys can't fly
Debbie
out.
Downer.
Maybe, you know, you never know. You know how it goes.
Maybe
Yes,
another Cat
sir.
4
Maybe
hurricane
the
wipes
earth
me out,
rattles
finishes
until
off
it
the job.
breaks
No.
into pieces, Sarah Hathaway.
Son, we got CME. Boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is that the sound of me?
I told you that. That's what all the transistors will do.
Appreciate it, PBN family. We'll talk soon. And stay tuned for the MOF version coming soon.
It's going to be drunken and wild. It'll be fun.
Drunken and wild and partially clothed. We'll talk soon, guys.
Love those guys and gals. I miss them so much every time. Such a blast to get to hang out. I wish we had like a whole week together. In the meantime, speaking of a whole week, it's been a couple weeks since we did Changing Earth News, and I have a ton of information to bring you because last Sunday, 2 weeks ago on Sunday, that's when La Palma was first erupting, and I didn't really have enough details to bring it to you on the show, so we can do a fair deal of talking about that today. So let's get straight into it because I have a lot of information to bring you. Flooding was happening again across the globe. On the 18th, there was flooding in Alabama. They got 5 inches of 2 hours. On the 19th, Mexico received severe damage again. Cities were evacuated from the flooding. Massive mudslides and flooding in Malaysia on the 19th. Venezuela got their fair share on the 20th. 54,000 people were affected by this unusual rain. On the 20th, India had 1.2 million people affected as rivers overflowed in West Bengal. The 21st, Indonesia received a mega amount of flooding with strong winds. Poor Spain cannot get a break. On the 22nd, they had I'm going to say it wrong, the Balearic Islands. They were just immersed in water. Multiple cities were affected. They just got hammered then and again on the 23rd in South Spain. On the 23rd, Pakistan saw severe flooding. The 24th, southeast Russia saw severe flooding, landslides that just annihilated homes. On the 25th, Mexico got it again. It was the Jalisco state. There was 1 casualty there. The Henan province in China got it on the 25th. 8,000 people evacuated because of that flooding. Also on the 25th, the country of Georgia saw severe flooding. 26, Malaysia, 148 millimeters above normal rainfall in 5 hours. On the 27th, Thailand, 1/3 of their provinces were inundated with water. It's just severe, massive flooding across a lot of that country. On the 28th, India, 10 people died, 3 went missing as the rivers overflowed there. And then on the 29th, Western Russia saw severe flooding. On the 30th, central China was again affected by flooding and this massive, massive landslide that came down. And then in India, because of all the soaked earth, they saw a 6-story building just toppled over because of the degradation of the soil there. We had a couple of fireballs fly by the earth. On the 18th, Shanghai, China saw a huge fireball fly over. And then on October 1st, Tennessee and Georgia, the people in those states saw a huge fireball fly over. And you know, I was coming through there right about then, driving home. And I think I actually saw that one. I was like, babe, what is that? You know, and he's like, I don't know. I have my eyes on the road. So I think I actually saw that one come over. We had a couple of good CMEs come in. The 23rd, there was a Class M, and then the 28th, there was a Class C solar flare. Both of those have already impacted the Earth and, you know, minor geomagnetic storms from that. Not a big deal. Handled it in stride. On the 24th, the USA in California, there in Redding, there was another 6,820 acre fire. On the 27th, Chile saw a big wildfire in La Chimba Forest. And on the 29th, in Colorado, Silverthorne, 600 people were evacuated due to wildfires there. So hopefully as we see our rainfall and whatnot tick up in the United States as we come into winter, we'll see less and less of those wildfires. We had a couple of huge sandstorms happen over these couple weeks. On the 24th, the United Arab Immigrants in Dubai, they got hit with a giant sandstorm. And then again on the 26th, Brazil got hit with this dust storm, huge dust storm that rebounded and came at them again on October 1st. Lots of thunderstorms happening on the 18th in Montenegro. Huge amount of hail came down. There was damage to cars, gardens, and olive groves. We don't want to see food supplies further damaged. It's just not what our world needs right now. On the 22nd, Oman saw severe storms. 25th, Italy was just ravaged by hail and strong wind. And then on the 29th, let the games begin, Iceland saw a severe cyclone that just sat over them. It was just a massive blizzard that came down on them. More snow was falling. This is out of season snow, so it's really unusual to start seeing snow this early, but it's happening. The 26th, Russia got out of season snowfall. That was like a little bit more south Russia, not like Siberia area where you're like, yeah, you know, you're expecting to see it there. The 28th was off-season snowfall in the Ural region. Now that is more northern. And then again on the 30th, northeastern Russia just got hammered with severe storms and power outages. Our globe saw quite a bit of tornado activity, which I don't usually have that much tornado activity going down. So that was a little unusual. On the 17th, one hit Turkey. On the 19th, 7 tornadoes hit the Lombardy region. On the 20th, waterspouts came off of Russia, did some severe damage. On the 23rd, waterspouts were sighted on Lake Michigan. On the 25th, Venezuela got hit by a tornado that destroyed a lot of infrastructure over there. And another one hit in Russia, but there was no damage. On the 28th, a very rare tornado hit Washington in the United States. It was weak, not a lot of damage, but you just don't normally see them there. On the 29th, there was a large waterspout in Germany that injured 7 people. On the 30th, another extremely rare, and Ellen actually told me as soon as this one hit Australia, and it did 30 kilometers of damage. So that is just, it just doesn't happen over there. Very, very unusual Earth activity right there. On the 1st, China got hit by an EF1. It hit Yantai, and they also got a really big hailstorm along with that tornado activity. And then the Netherlands were hit by waterspouts on the 1st of October as well. Volcano activity. So I want to have my numbers for you at the end, which I found rather interesting. But as I mentioned last 2 Sundays ago when I did my podcast live, that was when La Palma was first erupting. And so I didn't have a lot of news on that yet. There was rumors of the huge landslides and things like that. Now, from what I've seen and heard from a lot of the really educated scientists in this field, they are saying that we shouldn't expect to see the mountain slough off. And this was about a week ago, and they were hoping, that the activity would slow and things like that, but that hasn't been the case. So I'm still eyes wide open on that one. I think it's something we should definitely be looking out for, because the East Coast would only have 8 hours of notification time if that mountain did slough and there was a 100-foot wave heading at the East Coast of the United States. That's a severe enough threat to really keep eyes on that volcano and what it's doing. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm not trying to fearmonger, but this is a preparedness show, and I think it's something that you should be aware of, and you should have your evacuation. You should have your evacuation routes planned, and you should know where you're going in the event that you have that 8 hours to get out and do what you got to do. On the 20th, Alaska also saw an eruption at, this is the toughest to say, Semi-Skopenoki volcano. And I probably just slaughtered the heck out of that. It's a native word. But the ash cloud went 15 feet in the air. On the 21st, there was large emissions from Mount Etna. She's still making noise. On the 21st, that's when La Palma lava also hit the ocean. On the 23rd, Fuego Volcano in Guatemala erupted. Also on the 23rd, there was 198 exhalations from Popocatépetl, Mexico volcano. That one's always pretty much on the move, though. The 24th, the explosions at La Palma increased. On the 28th, La Palma got even bigger. 6,000 residents were evacuated there on the 28th. So that's why I say it's eyes wide open on that volcano right now. On the 30th, Hawaii saw its own eruption at Kilauea. So definitely have some activity going on with our volcanoes across the planet. Like I say, I'll have those numbers at the end. Kind of interesting numbers. But first, let's talk about some earthquakes. On the 18th, there was 235 earthquakes that were a magnitude 2.2 or higher. The biggest of those were in Papua New Guinea. El Salvador saw a 5.0. On the 19th, there was 364 earthquakes 2.2 or higher. The biggest of those were in India, Vanuatu, and Tongatapu, coming in at 5.1. On the 20th, there was 303 earthquakes 2.2 or higher. The biggest of those came in from Russia, a 6.1, a 6.0 in New Zealand. New Zealand's been seeing a ton of activity. A 5.6 in the South Sandwich Islands, another area that's just seeing a ton of activity, and then a 5.9 in Tongatapu. So that area is obviously on the uptick right there. On the 21st, there was 214 magnitude earthquakes, 2.2 or higher. There was a 5.9 near Melbourne, Australia. So Ellen had just told me, there's an earthquake, and then the next day she's like, there's a tornado, and I'm like, what the heck? I don't think God's very happy with Australia right now. And we're going to have Ellen on the show next week to talk about some of what's going on and what they're experiencing over there. There was a 6.3 in Chile that same day, so that one was pretty darn notable as well. On the 22nd, 370 earthquakes 2.2 or higher happened on our planet, the biggest of which was a 6.5 in Nicaragua that did a lot of damage. There was a 5.6 in New Zealand, a 5.3 in Indonesia, and a 5.1 in Panama. On the 23rd, 295 earthquakes, magnitude 2.2 or higher, happened on our planet, the biggest of which was a 5.6 in Mexico. On the 24th, 372 earthquakes 2.2 or higher happened on our planet, the biggest of which was a 6.1 and a 5.5 in Alaska, a 5.2 in Japan, and a 5.2 in India. On the 25th, 131 3.0 or higher happened on our planet. So these are the big dogs that were happening then. The biggest of which was a 5.8 in South Africa. Taiwan was seeing activity. Tonga, New Zealand had a couple again. Those were biggies. 4.8 and a 4.9. China and Guadalupe. On the 26th, 145 earthquakes, magnitude 3.0 or higher hit our planet, the biggest of which was a 5.6 in the Philippines, a 5.1 and a 5.0 in New Zealand, and then just a bunch of other severe earthquakes, a 5.3 in South Sandwich. Indonesia got hit, China got hit. On the 27th, 354 earthquakes, magnitude 2.4 or higher happened, the biggest of which was in Greece. It was a 5.8 on the 27th. And Tajikistan got a 5.1. Japan saw a 5.2. On the 28th, 343 earthquakes 2.5 or higher took place on our planet. The biggest of which were 5.0s in Taiwan, Fiji, Guadalupe, China, New Zealand. Again, New Zealand's on the list almost every day. So there's definitely something happening down there. On the 29th, 316 earthquakes, magnitude 2.5 or higher, happened on our planet. The biggest of which was a 5.1 in the South Sandwich. They've been seeing a ton of activity there. Oh, and a 6.1 in Japan, so that's a pretty big one, and a 4.9 in the Philippines. You're going to see a lot of these same names recurring over and over, so there's some kind of activity happening there. On the 30th, 226 earthquakes, magnitude 2.5 or higher, hit our planet, the biggest of which was a 5.3 in Afghanistan, a 5.1 in Vanuatu, and a 5.1 in Japan. But India also got hit. New Zealand's on that list. Bolivia's on that list. On October 1st, 294 earthquakes, magnitude 2.5 or higher, hit our planet. The biggest of which was in the South Sandwich Islands at a 5.4. But there was a 4.8 and a 5.1 that happened up in Alaska, as well as a 4.9 in Delhi and a 5.1 in New Zealand. Philippines are back on the list. Indonesia's back on the list. China's back on the list. So on the 2nd, we saw a couple of moderate earthquakes in some interesting areas. San Leandro, California is something that we see a lot. But there was also a couple in Montone, West Texas. So that's interesting because you don't usually see them out there. I mean, the fracking activities can cause the earthquakes out there. So that's probably what's going on. Looking at our volcano activity for today, obviously I hadn't been watching it while I was gone. I didn't even have very good cell reception. So looking at our volcanic activity for today, we have 27 active volcanoes right now. That is the most that I've ever reported on the Changing Earth podcast. So we have the most amount of active volcanoes in motion right now since we started watching it really, really closely in July. There's only 10 earthquakes showing minor activity right now, though. So that's a really, really low number compared to what we usually see. We're usually up around, 17, 20 is where we've topped out, but there's only 10. So, are they misreporting? What's going on there? I don't know. But that is a really low number. And we have another low number of earthquakes or of volcanoes showing unrest. There's only 30 earthquakes showing unrest. That's a very, very low number. Usually we're up around, 40 in there, 40 or above. That's kind of an average. So interesting that we have the most amount of active volcanoes going off, but the least amount of volcanoes showing minor unrest, minor activity and unrest than we normally have. So I found that kind of interesting. And you're only as good as the information that you can find to go ahead and report on. So we'll have to just keep our eyes on that one. All right, guys. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed getting a little piece of Prepper Camp here on the Changing Earth podcast. Please make sure you check out Prepper Broadcasting Network. That's going to be the home of the live shows for the Changing Earth podcast. Can't wait to become a part of that community. We've already been dancing around it for a while, and now that it's official, it just feels really, really good to be a part of that family. So I really encourage you to go over there. They have some great shows that happen on Prepper Broadcasting Network, and I just really recommend you go over there and check that out and see what it's all about. Until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah and Chen for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster at www.authorSarahFHathaway.com. If you love the Changing